Before I stamp these papers, make sure this information is correct.
Hi there, I'm Ice here, and years ago I posted some thoughts on character creation in Morrowind, and recently somebody asked me, well, what about if I use the Morrowind Rebirth mod and gonna play Morrowind for the first time with that mod? What advice would you give about character creation then? So I'm going to try and answer that in this video, and there's also a written version on my sort of blog. The first thing about character creation in Morrowind is that, well, it's supposed to be all about freedom. Create the kind of character you want, so choose whatever you want to roleplay. That's the most important thing that you would enjoy and have fun with. The remarks I've made about character creation in Morrowind years ago tended to be sort of about character power, if you want, especially in the long term. That's not really necessary to fret too much over. If you think something is going to be fun to play, do that, go with that. But this is more, if you don't really, like, if you're playing the game for the very first time, you have no idea about the game, well, then there are perhaps some things to keep in mind, just to keep the game experience a little bit smoother, perhaps. And, well, the first thing about the Morrowind Rebirth mod is that, well, basically, I mean, the whole point of the rebalancing that goes on there in character creation is to make more of the character options in the game viable in a sort of power play sense, and that sort of reduces the use of character creation guides like the one I've made in the first place. But well, first thing, you can actually turn off the changes to character creation if you want to. You can simply disable the relevant ESP files in the Morrowind launcher and you know, get away with all the changes to races and birthsigns and skills right there in the launcher, and still keep the rest of the mod, like the expansions of settlements and so on. So you can stick with basically all the old advice I've given. And I'm going to also, the next thing is that a lot of the advice I give there is still going to hold true even with Morrowind Rebirth. So I'm going to reiterate it here. You don't have to read the stuff on the blog as such. The first suggestion I've had is that if you're going to play a spellcaster, it's really nice to have bonuses to maximum magicka. And it's always useful to have bonuses to resistance, and most of those didn't really change in Morrowind Rebirth. So if you're planning on making a spellcaster, somebody uses spells for most tasks in the game. Like I said, extra magic is just very useful, perhaps even more so in the late game when stronger spells cost more to cast, and a Morrowind skill doesn't lower the cost just the success rate. So, for me, the Breton race and the Apprentice birth sign is still my go-to choice for new players, to be honest. The race gets, like I said, a little bit extra maximum magicka, and it also has a resistance here that synergizes really well with the birth sign of the Apprentice. So what the Apprentice does is give you even more maximum magicka, and also a weakness to certain forms of magical attacks. But remember, the Breton race bonuses cancels that out anyway, so they synergize very well. You can, of course, choose other races and signs to get maximum magicka. High elves get an even stronger bonus to max magicka, but that comes with a weakness to elements that it just means you'll be more of a glass cannon in a spell fight. basically. I should perhaps mention here that I don't like managing supplies of potions and scrolls and whatnot. I just find that boring, to be honest. As for birth signs, a very popular one, and especially in the vanilla game, is the Atronach. And that's been nerfed a little bit in Morrowind Rebirth. It used to give you a 50% chance to absorb enemy spells cast at you. That's been reduced to 25 points, which means again the elven resistance, sort of the elven weakness to magic, is going to hurt even more, to be honest. But the big problem with the Atronach is that it stunts your magic, which basically means you can't get magicka back by resting. And in Morrowind, you can't get it back just by waiting around either, so getting magicka back is a pain, especially if you don't want to manage lots of potions and stuff. There might be some, tricks and glitches that you can use to get it back, but again, rebalance mods have a way of doing away with those anyway. So for a first character, I would recommend, if you're spellcasting, Apprentice and Breton, to be honest. If you're not planning on basically spellcasting, if you perhaps want a more sort of a warrior archetype sort of character, then I think that good races are Redguard and Nord. I think I emphasized Nord back in the day because they have this useful resistance to frost. I think they also had a little bit of resistance to shock back then, which has been taken away in Morrowind Rebirth. But I think these days I would probably, especially for a new character, I would perhaps think Redguard is an even nicer option. They also have a good resistance to poison attacks, which are also quite common. It doesn't hurt to be a little bit resistant to disease, and they have a bonus to Longblade skill, which is so good that it really helps out in the early game. It's just going to reduce that annoying hacking that doesn't connect, which happens when you attack enemies with a melee weapon and don't really have the skill. You're going to miss a lot. That's going to be a bit weird. So yeah, Redguard or Nord for race, as in birthsigns. Well, back in the day, I would recommend the Lady, because it gives you more initial endurance to start with, and that's going to affect how many hit points you get every time you level up. So having that stat high early on is just going to give you more hit points in the long run. Now, this birth sign has been nerfed in the Morrowind Rebirth mod. Vanilla game, that's a 25 point bonus to endurance, and personality, and here it's just 10 to each. So yeah, it's been nerfed, but I still think it's a strong choice, just because starting endurance is nice to have. You start here with a 70, which is good. But the thing about the birth signs is that they have been quite nicely balanced, I think, by Morrowind Rebirth. Many good options to choose from this time. And some of them were absolutely useless in the past, like the Steed especially. Sorry, not the Speed, but the Shadow especially. But not that one either. They're all actually, they were okay before. They're even better now. The Shadow, Chameleon could be good for stealth characters. The Steed, 20 bonus to speed. That's pretty good if you're not going to use the Boots of Blinding Speed. And in the Rebirth mod, it's given 100 points extra carry capacity. At least, for a while, that can be a nice thing to have. The Serpent is what used to be rubbish, because that poison ability tended to, in vanilla game, it hurts you as well as the enemy, which is kind of pointless. But now it's an asset. You can do some poison damage, and you can even get a poison on yourself. I'd still say that the Lady is a much stronger choice, but they're all useful things to have in your birth sign now. Another one that's still very strong, especially early through mid game, is the Lover. Fortifies your agility, which again means you'll hit the enemies more often, and paralyzing one enemy for 10 seconds is also really nice. That in vanilla game comes with a bit of a drawback. You'll lose lots of fatigue, which might actually cause you to fall right over, which is a bad thing if you're being attacked by several enemies. So that might be good. I already mentioned the Shadow and the Steed. The Warrior again, fortified attack means you have a bit better chance to hit things. Really useful in the early game. So yeah, lots of good birth signs to choose from, but I still stick with my old recommendations here, honestly. Perhaps one of the biggest new things, if you're thinking about a stealthy character, a really stealthy character, well, the Wood Elves have some really nice bonuses in Morrowind Rebirth. Take this with a grain of salt because I haven't playtested this that much, but I didn't really think they were very, at least powerful before, though they could certainly be fun to roleplay. But this power that they have now to get 50% chameleon, that is quite nice. And they also have a 15 point bonus to marksman, which again means you're going to hit things more easily with bows. That's a nice thing if you're going to be a stealthy character, I suppose. Again, missing things, not because you missed them, but because your character just doesn't have the skill to hit things, is pretty darned annoying. And if you combine the Shadow power with the Wood Elf power, you can actually get a lot of chameleon, which can help pickpocket things and can also help sneaking and all kinds of stuff. You also have invisibility, which is not quite as good as chameleon, but still can be very useful. The thing is, invisibility gets broken the minute you touch something. Chameleon does not, so you can use it, for example, to pickpocket. So yeah, there's that. Morrowind Rebirth, nice mod there, lots of tweaks. You can't really use it with the graphics and sound overhaul that I've got on this install here. They don't. Yeah, my Morrowind tends to crash a lot now. But anyway, I think the biggest thing that I've written about on my blog type website is really about classes, and that's not been touched by Morrowind Rebirth at all. Basically, the classes that you pick from the class list in vanilla game, and also with the mod, I don't like them very much. I think Spell Sword is probably one of the ones I like the most, although not for stealthy characters, certainly. Oh yeah, there's one thing more that I should mention about skills and stuff, and that is that well, I sort of suggested a bit of an exploit in my written up thoughts on Morrowind, and that's using restoration skill to fortify your skills, and use that, for example, to give you a chance to repair your armor, because you fortify your armor skill. You could use it for a bunch of other things. That's not going to be happening in Morrowind Rebirth, because it means you can no longer make custom spells or enchantments with the fortify skill effect. Same thing also affects invisibility, but not chameleon actually. So starting out with chameleon skills means you can start making custom things there. So yeah, but that is a bit different from what you might read on my guide. I have tried also to put together a bit of a class for a sneaky person here. Just because, just to show off something I would be recommending. You're obviously specializing in stealth. I still think endurance and luck are just nice, because endurance is important for getting hit points, and luck is just hard to increase in any other way except getting an initial bonus to it when you make your character. You're going to shoot a bow, you're going to wear light armor, you're going to obviously sneak, you're going to use your security skill to open locks and stuff. I suggest a short range weapon as well, actually. Long blade is a major skill. Then you probably want illusion skill to, especially now that you can't sort of fortify, for example, your speechcraft skill. Charming people with illusion is going to be useful. Again, to cost chameleon effects, that's nice. If you're going to use enchantments, no harm in putting that in your repertoire. You don't need armorer, but seeing as it's nice to be able to repair your armor and weapons on the fly without having to go back to a smith, could include it. Restoration, yeah, because it's still nice to be able to heal yourself. You might not want athletics actually to be in your skill set, because it'll make you fast. There's no, you can put it in there. It will mean you're not going to be able to control when you level up if you want to power level up. But you don't need to do that, so you can put athletics in there or swap it out with something else. It's not a big deal really, but something like that would be more efficient in my opinion than like the traditional thief character that uses short blades, which just aren't that good in my opinion, and also doesn't have any skill in enchant or restoration or anything like that. This is just more well-rounded kind of character. In fact, long blade is what perhaps actually in this case you would want to switch out long blades and use spear instead, just because they'll level endurance faster that way, and it just pairs up nicely with a theme of trying to fight enemy at range. Because they're close range, but you can still sort of keep them at a little bit at bay, I guess. Yeah, so there you have it, a little section on your class as well. That's it. Go enjoy Morrowind.